Well, a pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of you. Whatever part of the world you may be joining us today, we say welcome to Transforming Lives One at a Time. And of course, on this program, we seek to catapult you into greatness. We want you to become better versions of yourselves, whereby you can make meaningful contributions to your society. Well, today, my guest is Miss Karelle Daniel, and she's a counseling psychologist based right here in Tobago. She holds a master's in counseling psychology and has over 10 years experience in her field. She's the founder and manager of Inner Healing Counseling Center, which is her private practice. Ms. Daniel, thank you for joining us today on Transforming Lives One at a Time.
Thank you so very much for having me, dear.
Yes, my dear. Well, today we are dealing with coping with the loss of a loved one. And I know that dealing with loss is a very traumatic experience. So many have gone through and continue to go through. So when we say someone is grieving, what does it mean? What exactly is grief?
Okay, so grief is a natural response to loss. And it really refers to behaviors, thoughts, even emotions, to losing something that is of value to you. So it could even be a job, it could be a relationship. Well, in the local term, we might say tabanka, right? But, a relationship could be in divorce, could be anything that you place value on. And I know for today, we are speaking about the loss of a loved one.
Yes. Okay, there is an issue that we as a people confront. This is an issue, rather, that we as a people confront on a daily basis. How do we even begin to deal with the loss of a loved one? Is there a quick fix?
Oh, that's an interesting question. To be honest, there's no quick fixes when it comes to grief. Now, everyone will grieve in their own way because we are all individuals, we are all unique persons. And there are many factors that will determine how a person grieves. Okay. We have, for example, based on their personality, there are some persons that are very expressive and very outgoing. So, they may be they may articulate themselves more and may be expressive. There are some that are very reserved and shy, right? It could be based on your coping style. It could be based on someone's faith, their religious beliefs. It could also be based on how the person may have died. Was it a tragic death? Was it a death that was sudden? Was the person like terminally ill? Was there time? And even when you see persons are sick or you know that they are sick, it still takes a toll on you.
Yes.
So it really depends on who the individual is. So there is no set time. But when I think about it, though, what I try to encourage persons is that for persons who they experience intense emotions for a very long period, I really encourage them to get support, because our bodies, physically, we develop maybe other ailments, other complications when our bodies undergo like intense emotions for a long period of time, right? Naturally, under stress,
yes, blood
pressure will go up. Our heart now has to pump more blood. We see fluctuating levels of your sugar, diabetes. All these things may come into play because stress, although we can't see stress, it manifests physically on our body. So I encourage persons, if it is that they know someone who maybe appears to be struggling, yes, still reach out and, give them that type of support,
Yes, yes.
So it's just to be mindful that yes, there is no set time, but if it is allowed to be prolonged, it can further develop into like clinical issues like further depression or anxiety, panic disorders.
Wow.
So we have to be mindful. It's a situation that persons have to be mindful of.
Right, because as you're talking, we hear from time to time that time heals all wounds. You know, so sometimes persons would have or even think they can have a specific time period in which to get over the loss of someone. I know of a mother, a family member of mine, and both her sons died.
Wow.
You know, and listen, it was such a traumatic experience. I spoke to her just a few weeks ago, and you know, we were just talking about it. And even in talking about it, and that would have been a few years, even in talking about it, she was in tears.
Yes.
You know, so sometimes persons would pressure you. Okay, look how long the person died. What kind of time period? Is it like something specific?
No, and it comes in waves. So it's like one day you may be good, you may be all right, and then something happens and you may be triggered. You know, you may hear a song, you may go to a special place, and then you remember a memory. Because remember, it's an emotional, it's a loss that you have.
Yes.
Right? And it's really for you to work through it and to live through it. Yeah?
Right, yeah. So in coming to terms with the loss, what are some of the coping mechanisms you would suggest in this? Because this is a very crucial time. You have lost, like, as it were, a part of you. What kind of coping mechanisms would you suggest?
Okay. One, I would tell persons who are suffering from or going through or experiencing grief, embrace their emotions. Because likewise, I mean, when you said there may be a question, should I still be feeling this way?
Right.
No, because that in itself will cause an inner turmoil because you're fighting against your own emotions. Emotions are real, right? And embrace them. 1 minute you may be angry, 1 minute you might be happy, 1 minute you might be sad. You know, it comes and goes, but embrace them. Don't fight them, embrace them, and work through them, right? Another technique in terms of coping, I would say, now, it also comes with self-awareness and self-care.
Right.
Right? You have to be able to monitor your thoughts, monitor yourself when you realize that you are really struggling, that you are able to reach out. So self-care, taking breaks when necessary, even if you're on your job and you're working and you realize you can probably reduce your workload.
Yes.
So all these things can help in you maintaining yourself or in terms of working through the grieving process. I would say getting social support. That is another key component in coping. And social support is not only just your family. I mean friends, I mean the community, your church community.
Right.
And in terms of like if they have, it's a family with children, the community will come into play if they have different groups that the children could now engage in.
Yes.
You know, the community support. And you know, in the Tobago circuit, the Tobago culture, if a loved one passes, this auntie come in and may stay for a while.
Correct.
Would have somebody bringing food to the home. Somebody will come across and start to help you clean. You know, there's always that community support, and it helps because, I mean, you're already going through something emotionally heavy. You will need that physical support to help you. So, and even just running up and down after the person passes, there's a lot of paperwork and whatnot. To have the company with you, it helps, right? But I would encourage persons that if you do know someone who is grieving and may have experienced that type of loss, most times you would see that type of busy activity maybe the weeks before or the week before the funeral.
Yes.
But you see, after the funeral, that also is a crucial time for the family. Still check in, still give a call. You know, how you doing today? Hey, I could take them boys. Right. Or I could take your daughter.
Yes.
Let's go to the movie or something. You know, just to continuously give that support.
Because as you said that, I am thinking, because of course when the news hits and family starts arriving and stuff like that, and then after the funeral, because all that time you're busy with getting things prepared and everything is in place and stuff like that, funeral arrangements and stuff, and then after that you have the family members leaving one by one. One by one. Especially if that household is not a very large household.
Correct.
So there you have that this person is now left alone, especially if it was a spouse that passed,
Yes.
or maybe your only child, or an
Yes.
aunt you were taking care of. And then you find yourself in that position that you now feel so alone. Not that others are not praying for you or still supporting, but that kind of alone. What happens in that timing?
Well, in that timing, it's where persons mostly reflect on the memories, that, and they are still coping with the loss. Because, for instance, if it's a parent, but it's a spouse, now your role may have to adjust. You have to be adjusted in the family dynamics, so even roles and responsibilities are changed within the household. So even that and all it's an adjustment. It's really adjusting to a life without the person there. Because having the individual there, even if it was a child, is that you will, as a parent, you would have had like goals and, okay, you would do this exam at this time, you're going to send it to this university or whatnot. And now that the child is not here, it's like, how can I live another life?
Yes.
Because this is the life that they had planned and they were working towards. Even with a spouse, we had all these goals and what we are going to do as a couple or as parents, and now you have to reconstruct.
Wow.
It's a whole new world that you have to reconstruct with the other persons, with all the other person being there. So you have to be patient with yourself and also be patient with others. Right? Be patient with yourself and take the time that is needed to come to a place. It's really a place of acceptance.
Yes.
And acceptance doesn't mean that you forget the memory of your loved one. The acceptance means like, okay, I do feel hurt, I do feel pain, but I will be okay.
Wow.
And it will come with the little tears here and there. But it wouldn't be that you will be like so overly emotional that you cannot help or you cannot like control yourself.
Right. Because it's just amazing, because I remembered, sometimes when you're not in it, you could never, some persons will say, I know how you feel, unless you have had someone very close to you ripped away from you.
Yes.
And I remember some years ago, I had my first experience when my grandfather died.
Wow.
And that was the first person that was close to me that ever died. So it was my first experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how people deal with it, because there was I trying to come to terms and trying to come to grips that, okay, I will never ever see my grandfather again after the funeral day and he's buried. I would never hear his laugh again. I would never get advice from him again. I would never see him again and be able to rub his head or, massage his feet or nothing. And that for me, it hit home.
Yes.
So at that point is where I was in grief.
Yes, you were.
So sometimes persons would say, girl, I know how you feel, but unless you have been there, you cannot really be able to empathize with persons as much. When I had that experience, it was an eye-opener for me. So now when someone tells me that they have lost someone, I know how they feel because I have been down that road already. I have seen and heard it on many occasions that persons feel a lot of guilt, especially if things weren't right with them and the deceased. How can a person who is already dealing with the loss, even at this point, now attempt to deal with the previous state of the relationship?
That's an interesting question. And I know it's a difficult place to be in because you don't have the opportunity to now express yourself or to rectify even a wrong that was done to you. Right? And well, for clients that I know struggle in this area, what I normally tell them to do, or encourage them to do is to write a goodbye letter. So this is really a technique that I'm sharing. To write a goodbye letter to their loved one, expressing themselves, whatever thoughts, whatever emotions that they wanted to say before and they did not get the opportunity to, let them express it, right, in this letter. And after which, well, it's really up to them what they decide to do. But for some, I invite them to tear it up. And because it's a symbolic act of you releasing what is inside, and then as you discard the paper, it's like you are releasing them, and you're releasing the problem, you're releasing the situation. So that is, it's a way of them trying to get what is here and here out.
Yeah, because it affects you. It affects you greatly. It's like, oh my gosh, I have heard of persons, you know, husband and wife, they were upset the night, and then they went to bed upset. And then the next morning, they're waking up their partner and that person has passed on. And the kind of guilt.
The guilt.
It's like, oh my gosh. They didn't. We left arguing. That was the last conversation, and at that point, it appears as if all the love that you would have shown to that partner all the years before, you are now thinking that it becomes null and void.
Yes.
So a pressure, an added pressure is added. How could you really
to really come through that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you know, even in counseling and therapy, an individual will be able to work through these things, you know, and in that moment as well, you really look at the argument and it's like, was it worth it?
Exactly.
You know, was it worth it? And they have to now work through that. It's a difficult place to be in because not only the loss, but not being able to rectify that issue.
Yes.
And you feel that guilt.
Of course.
Yeah.
But how, so at this point, this individual now has to work on forgiving themselves.
Forgiving themselves, or even forgiving the individual.
Right.
Because sometimes you have to work on forgiving the person that has passed based on, because sometimes there are situations where I know persons are ill but they don't tell their family. Right? So then it's only when they die, it's like, what? They were sick? Right. And then it's like, but they should have told me something. Or they're angry. Or I know of a case where a mother sent the daughter out of the hospital to go and get maybe a drink. And by the time she came back, the mother was gone. And, you know, in her heart is that she believed the mother knew that she was going.
Yes.
And, you know, so we have to work through that anger and maybe see it from the point of view of the mom, in that she wanted to save her from seeing, you know, and sometimes it's perception. How we perceive things and how we view things could affect, you know, our responses to situations.
Wow.
Right? And that's why sometimes even, as I said before, even with your faith, based on your faith, persons respond to death differently. You know, as much as, so like for Christians who really believe, yes, it will hurt and pain. You will feel the emotional hurt and pain. But for some, they are like, I know that God has them, and they would use their faith to bring that comfort and understanding their own purpose and self, and understanding that you too are on this earth for a purpose.
Definitely.
You know, and that in itself helps you to work through. And what just came to me is that some persons, they feel guilty. Because we're thinking about guilt if, you know, it was unresolved.
Yes.
But there are some persons who feel guilty for even being happy.
Right.
Or living life. You know, I've come across persons like that. And it's like, should I be happy? Should I enjoy this moment? Right? And what I do, I just encourage them. If your loved one was here, they would have wanted you to be happy.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
They would have wanted you to be happy. So the business that you were going to start that business. You know, the study program or the program you wanted to go and study, the trip you wanted to take, go and take that trip. Because in you now, living a life of purpose, you are honoring the life of your loved one.
Wow.
Because in their living moments, they wanted you to succeed, and they want you to succeed. So even when they are not present, it's the same thing they would have wanted, for you to succeed and for you to continue to press in and press forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is, wow, that is just amazing what you just said. So they use it, you know, as a stepping stone.
As the honor, the more you do. Even persons, they may, based on the loved one, they may have started projects.
Right.
Or if they like, or traditions, right? So like every Christmas, the loved one would have maybe feed the homeless.
Yes.
So in honoring them now, you take up the tradition.
Wow.
So the different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, on this, we're going to stick a pin there, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. You're viewing Transforming Lives One at a Time.
Are you looking for beautiful and durable flooring for your home or office? Check out D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, Bonaccord, Tobago, opposite the primary school. Our high-quality ceramic and porcelain tiles come in a wide range of colors, patterns, and textures to suit any style and taste. From sleek and modern to classical and traditional, your floors and walls will look great for years to come. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 460-8802 or 639-8281. We've got you covered.
Welcome back to Transforming Lives One at a Time. Today we are speaking about coping with the loss of a loved one. My guest today is Miss Karelle Daniel, and she's a counseling psychologist. So, Miss Daniel, as we get back into the conversation, we cannot be naive. Because we have so much contention amongst family members and other relatives when someone passes. Listen, many families turn into it's turmoil when a relative dies, and as a result it brings more pain to those already in grief. How do we address it? Because I think it's a real nightmare.
It is. And it takes somebody to be the bigger person, right? Somebody to recognize what is happening, and maybe inviting a neutral person or neutral voice into the conversation. Because at the end of the day, we want to ensure that our loved one, receives respect and is honored even in their burial. Right? So we can maybe invite an elder of the family, somebody who is respected by all, or someone outside of the family that is able to mediate, or if not, there are mediation services available. We could call in a professional.
Yes.
Right? And it's for persons to really be able to bring it together, to honor their relative, and to reduce the stress from all parties involved.
Of course, because you are already in grief.
Yes.
You're already grieving that this person has passed, and to deal with this new set of grief. Sometimes I look at families and I said, but this family, they used to live so loving and so peaceful when their mom and dad was around, and from the time they die, it's like sister against sister, brother against brother. And I'm like, what is happening?
And most times I believe too, it's like assets and resources.
Precisely.
And the land issues and whatnot. I believe that's where most of the fight comes from.
And this actually brings me to the point of parents, especially parents, putting things in right standing, put things in right order. Let me look into the camera for this one. Parents, please, put things in order, put things in place. I mean, you may not be able to control what happens after. Obviously, you can't, but at least you can put things in place so it will be able to alleviate that problem as much as possible. Speak with your children. Explain to them, listen, this is what, okay, this is for Helen, this is for Roger, this is for Byron. You understand? Put everything in writing. Go to a lawyer and get everything and have a family meeting. Let them know, okay, today or tomorrow something happens to me. I have already put things in place. Don't just leave it up and think that they will be mature. Because obviously, what is happening now, you're not seeing any kind of maturity. So parents, I look straight into the camera, this one was for you, all right?
And I am 100% behind you. I totally agree with that.
Yes.
And it's never too late, it's never too early to get these things done.
Of course. I don't know. I think we have to, because if you are not wise, you are otherwise. A friend told me that. He said, we are talking about something, and he said, but listen, Deanne, if you are not wise, you are otherwise. And I said, where do you come up with these things? But it was just so refreshing. I laughed, but it was the reality. You know, I want to talk about when you lose someone, especially to crime. That kind of sudden loss. And or it may be an accident. You know, you sent your son down to the grocery to get something, and the next call you receive, he was in an accident. He just died. Those kinds of, they call it hot.
Yes. Those are some of, you see, sudden death.
Yes.
What we call sudden death. Those are the situations that are very hard to face and hard to go through. Especially I just see them here.
Yes.
You can't be calling me and telling me this thing. So they will go through shock, disbelief, anger. These are where you would see most of these symptoms, or you would say emotions are just coming in, rise and fall hot. Most times these types of cases need professional intervention.
Yes.
Because we don't want it to be complex grief when it's more than one issue that you have to be dealing with.
Okay.
You know, and that's why family support and all these things are important to help manage or to help cope, to help the immediate family cope with such tragic news or tragic death. You know, it affects how, it really affects your daily functioning.
Yes.
You will see persons unable to sleep, unable to eat. It's literally, I say it's a soul hurt.
Wow.
This is how I see it.
Yes.
I see it as a soul hurt in that it affects your mind, it affects your emotions, it affects your will to do things, your will to be. It's a soul hurt, and it's a deep hurt, these types of deaths, you know, and you would need that additional support during that time.
How about, let's talk a little bit about your mental health. Because, you know, we have a kind of stigma when it comes to mental health. If persons are going through a situation and they just need someone to speak to. Sometimes you just say, you know, sometimes you're not comfortable speaking with a family member, and you might just want a professional who can be able to really understand exactly what you're saying and to be able to give you some coping mechanisms. Let's talk about the kind of toll, especially a sudden death, has on the mental aspect of our lives.
And well, mental health in itself is more the holistic well-being of an individual. The ability to think, the ability to, their physical health, their emotional health, you know, so it encompasses the holistic well-being of an individual. So if in any of these areas where you are unable to function clearly or function effectively, then that's where we'd say that your mental health is being compromised. You know, You come to work and you be very irritable, or you're being very aggressive with your family, your mental health is being compromised. So in grief is a situation that can impair your mental health. I would say compromise your mental health, because mental health is not mental illness.
Right.
So some of your mental health issues that you may experience could be, yes, the sleeplessness, developing anxiety, or even there is like a hypervigilance. Like if it's a parent loses a spouse, they may become hypervigilant with their children. You know, they're very overprotective.
Yes.
Right? Different areas like even digestive. So physically now, we have digestive issues, we have stomach issues, headaches, nausea.
Right.
These are some of the things that could happen if your mental health is compromised whilst you experience grief. So yeah, and so monitoring yourself, monitoring your loved ones, the surviving loved ones is important. Just checking in. And checking on your strong friends and your strong family members.
Yes.
These are the ones that you think, well, yeah, they get it, they're strong, they could cope. Checking on those strong ones.
Yeah.
You know, because they may appear strong on the external, but internally they are struggling.
Wow.
Because we have a lot of functional persons that are depressed.
Yes. Listen, as you mentioned that, it is so amazing, because sometimes when you look at the statistics, because just a couple of days ago, we had this 15-year-old boy committing suicide. And listen, I'm telling you, sometimes we ask ourselves, especially when someone commits suicide, why is it that they did not come and speak with me? I saw them just what they... But I think we have to be a little more alert. I think we have to be able to look out for each other much more. Because sometimes, as you rightfully said, there are a lot of persons, the strong ones, quote unquote, you know, and they're walking around, they have that beautiful smile. How are things? I usually say to a lot of persons, you know, society teaches us to lie, right? Because when I come, hi, Miss Daniel, how are you today?
I'm good.
Of course, I'm wonderful. How is the children? And the children giving you pressure. But you would not say that. You know why? When I ask you the question, I am expecting you to say, I'm fine, all is well. I am not waiting for a response in the negative, you know, because now I have to stand up and listen to you say, well, you know, the husband giving me real trouble. Oh, Lord, so long I asked him to cut the yard and he not.
So it's more courtesy asking.
It is.
Not
but
that
I don't really want to hear your problem.
Correct.
And I'm saying that we have to get back to the place that we can be able to really spend that time with individuals, because I'm afraid that we have become so busy. It's all about me, myself, and I. Myself, my job, my children, my family and stuff. And you don't take the time out sometime to just send a little message. You know, how are you today? My thoughts just ran on you and I just said, you know, let me just say hi. Or I came across this song and my thoughts just came on you. I just want to encourage you. In spite of whatever you're facing today, you know what? Don't worry, things will work out.
Correct.
How long that will take?
And it's for us to be mindful of our circles. Because we all have our circles. This is my BFF. We all have our circles. It's just to be a little more attentive to the persons around us. And most recently, I am in a group. I would say it's a group of friends, about 5, 6 of us. And we recently started saying, I love you more.
Wow.
We had to start normalizing saying, I love you.
Exactly. It's like a...
Right? So when you come off the phone, I love you.
That's right.
And I recognize, you know, it's reciprocated and everybody's now, love you, how are you guys? And it's not just a general text or anything, it's that I really do love you.
Of course.
I do love you and I care about you.
Right.
And I think we need to normalize saying I love you to people.
Yes. We need to be a more caring people.
Yeah.
We need to be more sympathetic when persons are going through their struggles, because sometimes persons are going through their little battles, and you may be seeing signs of it. Because my next question is, what do I look out for? How do I know that a family member is possibly on the verge of suicide? How do I know? What do I look for? Is it that I will see behavioral changes? Because sometimes you don't even see that. They hide it.
And I would say sometimes a person that is ready to commit suicide, they look like me, just sitting, smiling. They look, you would not believe that this was a thought in their mind. It doesn't, to me, suicide doesn't have a look anymore.
Right.
Before, yes, there are telltale signs like isolation. Based on their speaking patterns, they start to become preoccupied with death, or make comments like, well, it's best I wouldn't be here anymore. It's best nobody really care, nobody really want me. It makes sense being here. You know, you all might be better without me. You know, we may see those telltale signs or hear them, but most times we really don't. And that's why it's important that we check in, especially if we know that someone is going through a hard time.
Right.
Check in.
Yes.
How you doing? You need any help? How can I assist you today?
But sometimes we take these things for granted, and it's only after the fact that we recognize, wow, I would have seen this, but because maybe I was a little too busy. Or maybe that person would have been trying to reach out, and for some reason, you know, I just slighted it. And then that person commits suicide, God forbid, and then you now have to deal with that guilt. Had I taken another 5 minutes, that person could have told me the story, told me what was happening.
And I could have gotten help.
Yes, because a lot of persons now, based on what is happening, a lot of persons are struggling. And we have a kind of proud way that we don't want others to know. I am saying this, I am looking into the camera again.
Yes.
I am saying, never be afraid to ask for help. You're a human being just like any other, and you will go through problems. You will go through situations. You will go through challenging times, but never feel that you are alone. There is always someone who is willing to help. I said it into the camera again.
Yes.
You know, we have to know that we have other persons that we could turn to.
Yes.
Let's talk about that in terms of, you know, the mindset of, I know we didn't really plan to talk about this, but the mindset of the person who is probably on the brink of suicide.
Right. Okay, so in majority of these cases, it's that they reach to a point where everything has become hopeless. Right? It's like a hopeless situation. There is no point in. There's no point even trying. There's no point of even reaching out. It's just a overwhelming sense of sadness and hopelessness. Their whole outlook is now, I would say, skewed of life.
Yeah.
There is no beauty in life anymore. And it's as though the world is better without me. Right? And you know, for a lot of times, there are certain chemical imbalances that also occurs in the brain, even when you speak about depression. So they may be required to take certain medication just for those that are severe to help balance these chemical imbalances and to balance the emotions. And with therapy, persons are able to come through depression. And that's the sad part, is that they can't get help. They can't get help.
But when you reach to that stage of hopelessness, because it would appear as you talk, when you reach hopelessness, you are thinking, nobody out there, it doesn't even make sense to me to make a call. It doesn't even make sense to me to talk to an aunt or talk to a brethren, as the guys would say. You know, so at that point, they're not even seeing that help is a possibility.
It's a possibility, you know. So that's why we try to catch them before, once we could, you know, to be able to identify, okay, you seem to be struggling. You're not your normal self. Tell me what's happening, you know, and to encourage persons to reach out. If you realize you start thinking a certain pattern or a certain way, reach out for help. That is some of your warning. At least you're identifying markers. If I am thinking of harming myself,
right,
then something is wrong. But something is wrong. It's not normal for anyone to want to.
Right.
So then something is wrong.
So when self-preservation is no longer crucial for that individual, you know for sure, okay. And of course, anyone who reaches the stage that they can even think of harming themselves, they can think of doing it to others as well. We have to look at that.
Well, it's more,
or possibly.
It could be possibly, but most times it's more as an internal struggle, right? It's more internal. So we're speaking about homicidal tendencies.
Right.
So it's yes, there is a possibility they can harm others, but it's more so it's themselves. They see themselves as the problem. They see themselves as the issue.
Right.
It's not you. It's a me problem. It's an I problem.
Right.
Most of the times, right? And if, well, at least so at least in our culture here in Trinidad and Tobago, so this is it may be a little sensitive. I don't have to go in too deep on this one,
because we have a break coming up too.
Right.
As well. So if you
but in regards to that, is that yes, there's a tendency that they can want to harm others, but it's not as high as harming themselves.
Okay, understood.
Yeah,
understood.
It's more internal.
Understood. Well, we're going to take a short break, viewers. Transforming lives one at a time. Stay with us.
Are you looking for beautiful and durable flooring for your home or office? Check out D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, Bonacord, Tobago, opposite the primary school. Our high-quality ceramic and porcelain tiles come in a wide range of colors, patterns, and textures to suit any style and taste. From sleek and modern to classical and traditional, your floors and walls will look great for years to come. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 460-8802 or 639-8281. We've got you covered.
Welcome back to Transforming Lives One at a Time. Okay, so we are continuing our conversation on the topic coping with the loss of a loved one. And earlier we were speaking about the mental health, you know, because sometimes you're coping with the loss of someone dear to you, and you may feel that you need a little more help, because sometimes we think, you know, yeah, don't worry, I'm strong, I'm okay. Some persons would even say, you know, at the funeral, let them cry, let them get out the feeling, let them get out the feeling of loss and that kind of thing. But also, if you're looking for that help, there is a stigma that if I'm going through something rough and I feel the need to speak to a professional, that, you know, the stigma. Let's talk about that.
Stigma. Now, this stigma has existed for a very long time, but I have found that persons are speaking out more. There are more mental health ambassadors that are speaking out in terms of their own struggles, and though the information is more out there, we still have those that determine, no, I can't work this on my own, I can't do this on my own. Yes. They're talking my business. My business could be, especially not Tobago community, it would be wrong, everybody will know my business. And they even deter others who are trying to seek help. I I would say to it that, one, this has to deal with you and you being a better person, and that the support is there, right? Based on, and you can ask around the community. I would tell persons, ask about Karelle Daniel. I would shout my name, because I grew up with my dad saying, the only thing that you, when you die and you carry with you, is your name.
Yes.
Right? So I would say, ask about Karelle Daniel, and hear what persons will say, and they will come back and say, okay, yes, person says that you are confidential, I can work with you or whatnot. So we are in a community where you can ask questions, and you can find out more about the psychologist or the counselor or the person that you may be interested in receiving counseling from.
Right.
Even if it's private or public spaces, we are living in a community you can ask questions, and persons are no longer afraid of opening up. I'm seeing more men coming in and requesting counseling on their own.
Wow, that is applaudable.
Yes, yes. Finding someone to speak to.
Yes.
Whether it be a professional or somebody that you respect, it's a plus for you. Because we all need support.
Correct.
We all need support.
Yes, because sometimes we think we are so strong, or sometimes, well, you know, Karelle is the strong one in the family. So does that mean that Karelle is not going through her challenges? Does that mean that you are there for everyone else? But sometimes persons, and I'm sure viewers might be saying, yeah, but I am there for everyone else. But when I need someone, I can't find someone. It's important that we are able to at least identify an individual or two, that whenever you may start to feel overwhelmed, that you can go, because you have to ensure that preservation of your life is most important.
And what I tell persons may say, that therapy thing or counseling thing, I see it as a conversation. That's how I describe it to persons.
Right, yes.
I said,
just like how we are speaking here.
And we have a conversation, and there are things that I can support you with. There are things I can give you recommendations for, because sometimes persons just come just to manage stress, manage their life, just putting things into order, managing their time schedules. It's nothing, it may not be as heavy as a clinical diagnosis or anything, or to say you have a clinical disorder. It could just simply mean to just sort out your work life, sort out your schedule. Sometimes persons are not sure of what career that they want to go in, what the next step is. That is what counseling does. It helps to clarify the lot of things that are going on in your mind.
Yes, because sometimes we have so many things cluttering our minds. And I always say, you know, you have to put things into perspective. If you are facing a challenge, some persons call it problem, some persons call it stress, whatever word you want to use to describe. But I like to say I'm having a challenge in this area. And if I'm facing a challenge, I like to put things into perspective. Okay, this is a problem. What can I do? What are the responses I can take towards this? It can either make the situation worse, or it can make it better. But you know something, you have to do something if you want to get the desired result.
And that's problem solving.
Right.
So congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
That's excellent. When you identify the problem, you look at the different options, and then you choose the best suited option.
Very well. Well, let's delve in a little bit about closure. Because many times you will hear persons crying out, I need closure, especially in situations where a loved one may be missing at sea, maybe a kidnapped victim, you know, that kind of situation. How important is closure for these individuals?
Now, those types of situations can be taxing on, I would say, the surviving family members or the remaining family members. And it's what we call ambiguous loss, because we don't know. We're not sure if they are dead or if they are alive. It's ambiguous loss. So it affects even the daily functioning of the lives of the family members. They're not too sure, is the person coming back? Even the word closure, right? There is debate on the use of the term closure as it relates to grief, because closure, it may others would perceive it as, okay, if we get closure, it sounds as though the grief ends.
Okay.
But the grief continues, because closure, how I see it, Diane, is closure for me is being able to receive the information.
Okay.
It may speak to the how and the why. The how and the why, what may have happened to the loved one. So it gives you the information, but you now still have to face with the loss. So the grief still continues, even when you do receive closure.
Right.
Right? You even though you receive the closure, as in the information, the grief now continues. And for some persons, we may think, for some, closure may bring maybe a greater level of understanding and a greater level of peace. But now that it's confirmed that the relative is dead, it may be more turbulent for some.
Yes.
So it may bring peace, or it may bring even more heartache and pain.
Right, because in a case where the person has gone missing without or otherwise,
or kidnapped,
you are always thinking, is it that my son is gonna come walking through the door any day? Is it that I'm gonna get a call from the police saying, oh, they just found her, she's alive and well, or we just found her, please come and identify, so that I think that level of uncertainty,
yes,
and just dealing with that emotional, it's like a roller coaster.
Yes, and to live in that state for a long time could put additional stress on your body, and we spoke about that before.
Yes.
Right? So closure, it brings the information, it helps to could most times reduce the level of stress and anxiety. And now at least you'll be able to focus on the grieving aspect of it.
Yes. Yes.
Because there is finality in the mind now, okay?
Of course, I have a body.
I have a body, I can see.
Wow.
Right? So for me, and for persons who are still in that ambiguous state, it's really to provide a support for them to cope in that ambiguous state.
Yes.
Because for some families, they don't even want to hear closure.
Exactly.
Because closure may mean death.
Right.
So they don't want to acknowledge death, but then there's also that hope.
Of course.
So it's to have them cope with the loss of the physical presence of the family member, although psychologically they are present.
Right.
Because they may return.
Exactly.
Right? So it's to cope with the present physical loss. So it's the adjustment of roles and functions in the family that may be addressed, and just giving them that support to function in the ambiguous state.
Yes, and I think we have to be very sensitive, because sometimes some persons can be so insensitive. You don't know what is happening. We don't know. So don't come and say, but condolences. You don't know.
We don't know.
You understand? So we have to sometimes wait it out and just be there as that added support system to the family. Because we always have to think, if it was me, I would have wanted that support. I would not have wanted someone to come and, sometimes
the life
persons, sometimes the persons speak without thinking.
Especially in the context of grief and loss. You will hear the most insensitive comments.
Even sometimes in our culture, we have the wake and we have the repast and stuff like that. And sometimes when I look at how the wake, because before, long time, when you go to a wake, it was a kind of solemn kind of gathering, someone has passed and persons are there to encourage
The
and
family.
to just be a part, that support system. But now to me, it is like a fete.
That's what came to my mind.
It's like a
It's what is in my mind.
wakes and then repass. It's like you pass out and you wonder, wait, it's a party. You don't know. So is it that we have become so accustomed to death that we no longer empathize and show the kind of respect that we need to as we begin to wind up? We're going to be winding up shortly.
Yes. So while we're living in a changing society, and you know, if they are the younger folk, they are into all this music and they into the lime, and you know, especially if the deceased was a limer himself or herself,
true.
they will say, hey, we had to honor Tisha, whoever, right? We don't want no sad songs here.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we see where culture is now changing.
Yes.
Because culture is what we make it to be, yeah?
Of course, definitely. Well, I mean, our time is quickly approaching. So at this time, I'm going to give you the opportunity for your closing remarks. And I am just thinking, someone who may be experiencing a really rough time now, speak into the camera, just speak to that person. And then right after, we'll talk about the different areas that we can reach out for help. So you could just use just about a minute and speak to that, and then we can.
Okay. So I'm really sorry for your loss. That's the first thing I would like to say. And I know having a loss, it's not easy. It's really not easy. I want to say that take your time, you know, give yourself the space to heal. Be compassionate on yourself and seek support. Lean on your support system. And if you don't have an immediate support system, reach out for professional help, someone, a counselor, someone that you can process what is happening to you and your experience.
Thank you, well said. At this time, give us how persons can contact you, and so if they can reach out for added support, they can contact you, your contact numbers and the name of the organization. Yeah, yes.
Sure. So it's Inner Healing Counseling Center. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Contact number 490-4422. I also want to encourage persons, most organizations, especially within our THA, they have EAP services as well.
Okay.
You can reach out to support from your job site, you know, where you work. Additionally, there is the mental health unit up at the Scarborough Hospital. In addition to the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection also offers counseling to persons there, so they can reach out for support.
Wonderful.
Right?
Well, thank you so much. Well, folks, this is how we wrap up our program for today, dealing with a very important topic, coping with the loss of a loved one. I want to thank my guest, the lovely Karelle Daniel, for enlightening us on coping mechanisms and key information on this issue that affects all of us. As indicated earlier, there is no quick fix. So you just do what you've got to do, and as you traverse this rough period in your life. This has been Transforming Lives One at a Time. I am your host, Deanne, and remember, transformation is an internal shift that brings us into alignment with our highest potential. Hey, we've got this. See you next time.